Imagine standing at the edge of your dreams, staring at the life you've been praying for, yet nothing seems to be moving. Doors that you thought would open are still closed. Opportunities you've worked for seem delayed. Friends, family, even yourself, sometimes it feels like everyone has moved ahead while you're still waiting, and in those moments, frustration creeps in. Doubt whispers, and fear tries to convince you that maybe God isn't listening, that maybe your time has passed, that maybe the life you've been chasing isn't for you. But here's the truth, God's timing is never late. The delays aren't denials, and the setbacks aren't mistakes. Everything you're going through right now, the waiting, the testing, the silent seasons, is part of a bigger plan. It's all working together in ways you can't yet see. What feels like struggle is really preparation. What feels like pause is really a pivot, and what feels like uncertainty is really alignment. So today I want to talk about why trusting God's timing isn't just an idea, it's a lifestyle. It's the choice to walk in faith when you don't see the road. It's the discipline to trust the process while waiting for the promise. It's understanding that God is in control, always, even when life feels out of control. When things don't move how we expect, we automatically assume something's wrong, like we missed a step, made a mistake, or maybe God forgot about it. But see, that's the flaw in human timing. We measure life by what we can see, touch, and count hours, days, months, years, but God's work moves outside of that. Divine alignment means everything you're praying for, everything you're grinding toward, every opportunity that hasn't shown up yet is still in motion. It's just aligning. It's not late. It's not lost. It's being lined up in the perfect order for you to handle when it arrives. Because truth is, sometimes the blessing you ask for is ready, but you're not. And sometimes you're ready, but the blessing isn't. God's job is to make sure both are ready at the same time. That's alignment. When people say, trust God's timing, it's not just about waiting. It's about understanding that waiting isn't passive. It's active faith. You don't sit back doing nothing. You keep working, keep believing, keep moving with purpose, even when you can't see results yet. That's what separates those who last from those who give up too soon. You can't rush divine order. It's like planting seeds. No matter how much water you pour, no matter how much sunlight hits it, it still needs its season to grow roots before it breaks the soil. If it grows too early, it dies fast. Same goes for your vision. God protects what's yours by not giving it to you too early. A lot of people confuse delay with denial. Just because something hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it's not going to. Sometimes it's just not the right moment. The connections you need might still be getting positioned. The resources might still be in motion. The experience you need to carry that blessing might still be forming. God doesn't operate off frustration. He operates off alignment. Think about it. If you got everything you wanted when you wanted it, you might not have the maturity or wisdom to hold it. You might fumble it, or worse, you might start thinking you did it all by yourself. God's timing humbles you. It reminds you that what's meant for you won't miss you, but it also won't meet you until you're ready to respect it. We live in a culture that wants everything now. Fast money, fast success, fast answers. But what comes fast often fades faster. Divine alignment is about building things that last. It's about process. It's about becoming the kind of person who can sustain what you prayed for. You can't pray for a platform and not build your character. You can't ask for peace and still live in chaos. You can't ask for love and still be running from healing. So when God slows you down, He's not holding you back. He's positioning you to move right. He's lining things up so that when it hits, it doesn't just touch your life. It elevates your whole purpose. And the truth is, divine alignment often doesn't feel divine while you're in it. It feels like confusion, disappointment, and waiting that doesn't make sense. It feels like unanswered prayers and closed doors. But sometimes God closes doors not to keep you out, but to keep you focused. He knows that if you walk through the wrong door, it'll drain your energy, your confidence, and your faith. So instead of giving you what you want, He gives you time to grow, time to heal, time to understand. Because alignment is about your soul being in rhythm with His plan. And that rhythm is never rushed. It's always right on beat. Think about every situation that didn't go your way. Maybe the job you didn't get led you to a better opportunity later. Maybe the relationship that fell apart made space for one that truly matched your purpose. Maybe the move that didn't happen kept you from a storm you didn't even see coming. That's divine alignment. The things that hurt now often make sense later. But faith means trusting before you understand. It means believing that there's purpose even in the pause. The key to surviving the alignment season is to stay disciplined. Don't let waiting turn into wasting. Keep showing up for your goals. Keep working on your character. Keep praying with intention. The waiting room is still part of the plan. And if you can stay consistent when nothing seems to be moving, that's when you prove you're ready for what's next. Because God isn't just watching your hustle, He's watching your heart. How do you act when you don't get what you want? Do you still show gratitude? Do you still treat people with respect? Do you still believe? Those are the tests of alignment. Sometimes divine alignment means being separated from people or environments that no longer match where you're going. It's not rejection, it's redirection. God will remove what distracts you to make room for what will develop you. But since we're human, we hold on to what's familiar even if it's draining us. So When things start to shift, when people leave, when plans fall apart, when doors close, don't panic. That's God rearranging your surroundings so your purpose has space to grow. You might not understand it now, but later you'll look back and see how every disappointment was really protection. And let's be honest, alignment takes trust, real trust, the kind where you keep walking even when you can't see the road ahead. That's not easy. But that's where strength is built. That's where you learn how to depend on something higher than yourself. Because if you could control everything, you wouldn't need faith. And without faith, you can't tap into destiny. So when you feel like things are slowing down, remind yourself you're not delayed, you're developing. You're not stuck, you're being shaped. Every day you stay faithful is another day closer to your breakthrough. When divine alignment finally hits, it won't just make sense, it'll feel right. The people, the opportunities, the timing, it'll all flow naturally, no forcing, no begging, no pretending. That's how you know it's God. Because what's meant for you doesn't bring confusion, it brings clarity. It brings peace. It matches your purpose. And when you move with that understanding, you stop comparing your timing to anyone else's. You realize your path is handcrafted. Your story unfolds in its own season. Divine alignment isn't about getting what you want when you want it. It's about trusting that what's for you will find you when it's time. So don't lose faith when life slows down. Don't assume the silence means God's forgotten. Sometimes he's just working behind the scenes, aligning everything perfectly. And when it hits, it'll be bigger, better, and more meaningful than anything you could have forced on your own. The power of patience is one of the hardest truths to live by because patience tests what you truly believe about yourself, your purpose, and God's plan. Everybody wants to win, but not everybody wants to wait. The world moves fast. People chase instant results, instant validation, instant recognition. But real growth doesn't work like that. It takes patience to build something that lasts. It takes patience to become who you're supposed to be. You can't microwave maturity, and you can't rush divine purpose. Patience isn't about sitting still. It's about moving with discipline when nothing around you seems to be changing. It's that inner calm that says, I may not be there yet, but I'm on my way. When you're chasing a dream or trying to overcome struggle, patience becomes your weapon. Because patience is more than waiting, it's enduring. It's about staying solid when the process stretches you, when opportunities move slow, when people don't believe in you yet. Most people lose themselves because they expect results too soon. They see someone else winning and start comparing timelines, not realizing that everyone's process is different. The moment you start comparing, you step out of your lane. Patience keeps you grounded. It reminds you that what's for you won't miss you, even if it takes longer than expected. Patience builds character. It teaches you how to control your emotions, your reactions, your expectations. When you rush, you make emotional decisions, and emotional decisions usually come with consequences. You end up chasing shortcuts, compromising your values, or trying to manipulate outcomes. But when you move with patience, you move with peace. You stop trying to control everything and start trusting that what's meant to happen will unfold at the right time. That's where wisdom comes from being patient enough to let experiences teach you instead of breaking you. There's a quiet power in patience. It's not loud, it's not flashy, it's steady. It's that energy that says, I don't need to prove myself, I just need to prepare myself. While others are racing for attention, the patient one is mastering the craft, building consistency, learning in silence, and when the time comes, they rise without forcing it. Patience separates the temporary from the timeless. You can build something fast, but if it's not built right, it won't stand when pressure comes. Patience makes sure your foundation is solid before your success arrives. Patience is also protection. Sometimes what you want isn't bad, it's just not right to you now. You might be praying for something your heart desires, but God sees the full picture. He knows the way that comes with that blessing. So when he delays it, he's not punishing you, he's preparing you. Because if you get it too soon, you might mishandle it. Every season of waiting has a purpose, to strengthen your faith, to shape your character, to humble your ego. The wait refines you. It removes the parts of you that aren't ready to carry what's coming. Patience demands humility. You have to accept that you don't control the timeline, and that's not easy. Especially when you're putting in the work and it still feels like nothing's happening. That's when frustration creeps in. That's when doubt starts talking. But that's also when you're being tested. Can you still trust God's promise when there's no visible progress? Can you still give effort when you don't get applause? That's where the power of patience really lies. In your ability to stay consistent without confirmation. Life has a rhythm, and patience helps you find it. Everything has a season: planting, growing, harvesting. The problem is, most people want to skip straight to harvest without surviving the grind of planting and growing. But those early seasons matter. That's where you learn resilience. That's where you gain clarity. That's where you develop gratitude for every little win. Because when you finally reach your season of success, it's patience that keeps you humble enough to appreciate it. Patience doesn't mean you stop moving. It means you move with purpose instead of panic. You take time to build something meaningful instead of casing everything that shines. You focus on your lane, your growth, your calling. You stay disciplined even when it feels like no one's watching. Because the truth is, every act of patience is an investment. You might not see the returns right away, but when they come, they multiply. Every time you resist the urge to quit, you strengthen your spirit. Every time you keep working when no one applauds, you grow more aligned with your purpose. Patience also teaches you peace. When you stop fighting against the timing of life, you start moving with it. You stop stressing about what you can't control and start appreciating what you can. You realize that peace doesn't come from everything being perfect. It comes from trusting that even the imperfections serve a purpose. That trust brings calm, and that calm brings clarity. You start making better choices because you're no longer reacting out of fear. You're responding out of faith. There's a story in every person who's achieved something meaningful. A story of waiting, of discipline, of setbacks that didn't stop them. Every legend, every builder, every dreamer had a season where they had to wait longer than they wanted, but they used that time to prepare. Patience gives you strength in disguise. It's the reason you don't break when pressure hits. It's what allows you to survive storms that would drown others. Because patience isn't weakness, it's controlled strength. It's having the power to move, but choosing to wait for the right moment. And the truth is, the moment you stop trying to rush your life, things start to fall in place naturally. That's the paradox. When you chase time, it runs from you. But when you trust timing, it aligns with you. You stop forcing things. You stop begging for validation. You stop doubting your worth based on what hasn't happened yet. You start realizing that the delay is often the greatest teacher. The longer it takes, the deeper your roots grow. The deeper your roots, the higher your branches can reach. That's the essence of patience, slow growth that builds unshakable strength. Patience also refines your relationships. When you move too fast, you attract people who match your urgency, not your destiny. But when you slow down and let time do its work, the wrong people fall off and the right ones find you. Patience exposes truth. It reveals who's really for you and who's only there for the moment. Because when you're patient, you stop clinging to what's temporary. You start valuing connection over convenience. That's when your circle gets smaller but stronger. Every lesson you learn while being patient becomes part of your wisdom. You begin to see that not everything denied is a loss and not everything delayed is a curse. You start reading the signs differently. You stop seeing pauses as punishment and start seeing them as preparation. Patience gives you perspective. It opens your eyes to how everything connects in the long run. It helps you stop chasing validation and start chasing alignment. The power of patience lies in how it transforms you from the inside. It teaches discipline when your emotions want control. It teaches gratitude when your desires want more. It teaches faith when your logic wants proof. It teaches surrender, not as giving up, but as giving over. Giving over your timing to God's timing, giving over your anxiety to His plan, giving over your fears to His promise. That's real power, the kind that doesn't scream but stands firm. When you master patience, you stop fighting against life and start flowing with it. You realize that your journey isn't about how fast you move, but how deeply you grow. Every delay becomes an opportunity for development. Every pause becomes a moment to prepare. Every setback becomes a setup for something greater. The power of patience isn't just in what you get from waiting, it's in who you become while you wait. The idea of purpose in the pause is one of the deepest lessons life can teach you because it challenges how you view stillness, silence, and waiting. We live in a world that glorifies motion, hustle culture, constant productivity, non-stop grinding. People believe if they're not moving, they're falling behind. But sometimes God puts you in a pause not to punish you, but to prepare you. That stillness isn't empty, it's sacred. There's meaning in that quiet space where nothing seems to be happening. The pause is where you discover what can't be learned in the rush. It's the place where clarity forms, where faith deepens, and where your true strength gets built. When everything around you slows down, your mind starts fighting it. You start questioning yourself. Why isn't this working? Why hasn't it happened yet? Did I make the wrong move? That's when the pause becomes uncomfortable. It feels like you're stuck, like life froze you mid-step. But the pause is not the absence of progress. It's the presence of process. You might not see growth above the surface, but something powerful is happening underneath. Just like a seed buried in soil, before it breaks through the ground, it has to develop roots in the dark. That's what the pause does. It roots you. It stabilizes you for what's ahead. Most people try to escape the pause too early. They confuse rest with regression or silence with failure. But in reality, God uses pauses to speak in ways that motion can't allow. When you're always busy, you can't hear divine direction clearly. You're too distracted by the noise, the movement, the expectations. But when life slows down, you finally have space to listen. The pause becomes a mirror showing you where you are spiritually, mentally, and emotionally. It exposes what needs healing, what needs changing, and what needs releasing. That's the purpose, to realign you before the next level comes. Purpose in the pause is about trust. It's about understanding that even when nothing seems to be moving, something is still being molded. You may not see progress, but progress is happening in silence. The pause is when God works behind the scenes, rearranging people, repositioning opportunities, preparing the path you'll walk on next. And because you can't see that, your faith gets tested. Can you trust the process when it's invisible? Can you believe there's purpose in stillness when your flesh wants movement? That's what separates people who panic in the pause from those who find peace in it. The pause often arrives right before transition. It's that quiet moment between chapters when one season has ended but the next one hasn't fully begun. It's uncomfortable because it's undefined. You're not who you were, but you're not yet who you're becoming. That middle ground feels like limbo, but it's really a bridge. It's the place where transformation happens. God pauses you to strip away the old layers, the habits, the fears, the doubts, so you can step into the next stage lighter and clearer. The pause refines your spirit so the blessing ahead doesn't crush you. Sometimes the pause is also protection. You might think you're ready for something, but you don't see the danger ahead. God does, so he slows you down. He puts barriers in place. He lets plans fall through, not to discourage you, but to keep you safe. You think the pause is rejection, but it's really redirection. You might cry about doors closing, but later you realize those doors were never meant for you. The pause was keeping you from walking into a room that would have broken your spirit. It's hard to see that in real time, but that's the wisdom that comes later. In the pause, patience becomes your teacher. You learn to let go of control, to stop forcing what's not flowing. You start realizing that life doesn't move on your command. And when you stop fighting the stillness, peace starts to settle in. You start to appreciate the lessons hidden in slow seasons. You notice the small blessings you used to overlook, moments of rest, deep conversations, time with yourself, time with God. You realize that the pause gave you back what the rush took away: presence. It brings you back to yourself. It forces you to sit with your own thoughts, to face your own truth, to rebuild your connection with the divine. The pause also exposes your inner foundation. When everything stops, you find out what you've been standing on. If your worth was built on activity, validation, or success, you'll crumble in the stillness. But if your worth is rooted in faith, purpose, and peace, the pause won't break you. It'll strengthen you. That's why pauses are necessary. They reveal what motion hides. They test whether your confidence is real or just momentum. The pause teaches you that identity isn't found in what you do. It's found in who you are when nothing's happening. Many people pray for purpose, but they don't realize purpose is often revealed in stillness. It's in the moments when you feel lost that you actually start to find direction. Because when everything goes quiet, the distractions fade, you can finally hear your inner voice, that whisper that tells you what's truly important. In the rush, you chase what looks good. In the pause, you discover what's good for your soul. That's where purpose grows, not in noise, but in silence. The pause is also preparation for acceleration. Think about a slingshot. It has to be pulled back before it can launch forward. The further it's pulled, the farther it flies. That tension you feel in the pause is the same thing. You're being pulled back to be propelled forward. Every delay, every quiet season, every closed door is building pressure for a bigger release. You just have to stay still long enough for the alignment to complete. That's the part people miss. They run when it gets uncomfortable, not realizing that's the moment right before breakthrough. In that pause, you might lose people, plans, or positions. It hurts, but that loss is part of the clearing. God removes what no longer fits the next version of you. He allows certain things to fall away so your focus becomes sharper. The pause separates the temporary from the necessary. It teaches you detachment, how to let go of what's expired and trust that what's meant for you will return stronger or be replaced with better. That's the purification of purpose. The shedding that prepares you for new beginnings. The hardest part of the pause is not knowing how long it will last. You can't set a countdown for it. You just have to live through it. One day at a time, one prayer at a time. But every day you choose faith over frustration. You grow stronger. You may not feel it, but you're being stretched, shaped, and strengthened. When you finally step out of that pause, you won't be the same person. You'll be wiser, calmer, more grounded. You'll understand why the wait was necessary. The version of you that comes out of the pause is more disciplined, more aware, and more aligned with your calling. The purpose in the pause is transformation. It's the unseen work that builds visible power. It's where you stop chasing and start becoming. It's where you stop forcing and start flowing. It's where you learn that silence doesn't mean absence. It means presence. It's the moment when your soul catches up with your destiny. So when life slows down, don't rush to escape it. Breathe, reflect, trust that even in stillness there's movement. Because sometimes God does his best work when everything else is quiet. Faith over frustration is one of those lessons that sounds easy until life really tests you. It's simple to say you trust God when everything's going smooth, when doors open and blessings fall right into your lap. But real faith shows itself when nothing makes sense, when prayers go unanswered, when the path gets dark and the wait feels endless. That's when the battle begins, not outside of you, but inside. Frustration starts whispering in your ear, trying to convince you that God forgot, that your efforts are wasted, that maybe this faith thing doesn't work after all. But faith is exactly what keeps you steady when frustration tries to break you. Choosing faith over frustration means deciding to believe in purpose even when you can't see progress. Frustration comes when your expectations don't match your reality. You planned your life a certain way, you worked hard, you gave everything you had, but life threw curveballs you didn't see coming. You start feeling like your effort doesn't matter, like the universe is working against you. That's when frustration grows, feeding off your doubts. But frustration is an emotion, temporary, reactive, loud. Faith, on the other hand, is spiritual, quiet, deep, and steady. Faith doesn't deny frustration. It doesn't let it lead. It says, I feel the weight, but I won't let it crush me. Faith reminds you that setbacks are setups, that timing is divine, and that what looks like loss might just be redirection in disguise. Choosing faith over frustration means refusing to let emotions write your story. When you act out of frustration, you rush decisions, force outcomes, and often sabotage your own blessings. You start trying to control what was never yours to control. But when you act out of faith, you move differently. You slow down, you breathe. You let God's plan unfold instead of trying to rewrite it. You realize that peace isn't the absence of struggle, it's the presence of trust in the middle of it. Faith doesn't mean you don't feel pain or confusion. It means you refuse to let those feelings define your future. Faith is the discipline of the soul. It's what keeps you grounded when storms hit. Frustration wants you to react. Faith wants you to respond. Frustration says, why me? Faith says, use me. Frustration complains about what's missing. Faith gives thanks for what's left. Frustration blames. Faith builds. That's why the greatest breakthroughs often come right after the hardest frustrations. Because when you hold on through that tension, you prove you're ready for what's next. The struggle is never just about the situation, it's about who you're becoming through it. There's a power that comes from choosing faith in dark seasons. It builds resilience. It shapes patience. It teaches surrender. Faith teaches you how to find purpose in pain and meaning and confusion. You start realizing that what frustrates you is often the very thing that's refining you. Those delays, detours, and disappointments are molding your character, strengthening your focus, and humbling your ego. Faith helps you see that growth doesn't always look like success. Sometimes it looks like survival, like endurance, like showing up one more day even when you feel drained. Frustration feeds off control, the need to know what's next, to have answers, to feel certain. But faith lives in surrender. It's saying, I don't know how or when, but I know who. That shift changes everything, because when you surrender the need to control, you create space for peace. You stop wasting energy fighting life and start trusting that even the chaos serves a purpose. Faith doesn't erase uncertainty. It gives you strength to walk through it without losing your center. You begin to see that God doesn't always move the way you expect, but he never moves wrong. When you're frustrated, everything feels personal. You start thinking life is targeting you, that others are getting ahead while you're stuck. But faith reminds you that your timeline is sacred, not competitive. You stop comparing your journey to anyone else's. You understand that your process is handcrafted, tailored for your purpose. Frustration wants you to quit halfway, but faith says, keep walking even when it's uphill. Every step you take in faith builds momentum you can't see yet. Every act of trust plants a seed that will bloom when it's time. Faith over frustration also means learning how to find calm in the middle of unanswered questions. You might not understand why something happened, but you stop letting that lack of understanding steal your peace. You learn to live with mystery, to walk with questions instead of running from them. Because sometimes the answers don't come first, the growth does. Faith gives you vision beyond the moment. It helps you see that what hurts now might heal you later. You start viewing pain as a teacher, not a punishment. That's maturity, not needing everything to make sense before you trust it's working for good. It's not easy to keep faith when life feels unfair, when good people struggle, when plans collapse, when effort goes unnoticed. Frustration feels justified, but faith steps in and says, keep going anyway. It reminds you that God sees what people don't. Every tear, every prayer, every small act of integrity still counts. You might not be rewarded in public yet, but heaven takes notes. Faith tells you that silence is an absence, that just because you don't see movement doesn't mean nothing's happening. Sometimes God does his best work behind the scenes, where your faith is the only proof. In those moments when frustration peaks, when anger and confusion try to take over, faith becomes a choice you make over and over again. You keep speaking life when your circumstances look dead. You keep showing gratitude when it feels like there's nothing to celebrate. You keep trusting that your story isn't finished. That's real strength, staying grounded in hope when the situation screams hopeless. The more you practice faith, the more natural it becomes. You start responding to challenges differently. Instead of panicking, you pray. Instead of complaining, you prepare. Instead of quitting, you rest and then resume. Faith becomes your rhythm, your default mindset. Choosing faith over frustration doesn't mean you ignore your emotions. It means you acknowledge them, but you don't bow to them. You can cry, you can vent, you can even question. God can handle your honesty. What matters is that you don't let frustration harden your heart. Keep it soft enough to hear guidance, humble enough to learn, and strong enough to keep going. Frustration wants to make you bitter, but faith makes you better. It transforms pain into purpose. It turns delay into development. It turns confusion into conviction. Sometimes the test is long, the weight heavy, and the silence deafening. But that's where faith becomes real. You start realizing that faith isn't about avoiding frustration. It's about mastering it. You learn to use that energy differently. Instead of letting it break your spirit, you let it push you toward prayer, reflection, and growth. Frustration becomes fuel when faith is in control. You stop wasting time complaining about closed doors and start thanking God for protection you can't see yet. Faith over frustration is the mindset of someone who refuses to let temporary emotions sabotage eternal promises. It's the attitude of peace in the middle of storms, of hope when there's no sign of change, of gratitude in the face of struggle. You start realizing that God never promised life would be easy. He promised he'd be with you through it. So when frustration tries to take over, remind yourself that you've already made it through things that once looked impossible. That same grace that carried you before will carry you again. Faith isn't loud, it's steady. It's the quiet strength that wakes you up every morning, even when you don't have all the answers. It's what helps you see light when everything feels dark, and when you choose it consistently, frustration loses its power. Because no matter how chaotic life gets, you start to recognize that you're not alone, you're not forgotten, and you're not defeated. You're just being shaped, molded by the same divine hands that wrote your story long before frustration ever showed up. Process before promise is a truth that separates those who want the glory from those who are willing to grow for it. Everyone loves the idea of a breakthrough, but not everyone is willing to endure what it takes to get there. The process is the place where purpose is built, and the promise is the reward that comes after you've proven faithful through the process. The problem is that people often chase the promise without respecting the process. They want the crown without the cross, the platform without the preparation, the reward without the refinement. But life doesn't work like that. God doesn't hand out blessings that will destroy you if you're not ready for them. The process is his way of shaping your character so the promise doesn't crush you when it finally comes. The process is where discipline is born. It's where consistency, humility, and patience are developed. The promise might look glamorous from a distance, but it comes with weight. That weight requires strength, and strength comes from struggle. When you skip the process, you skip the development that gives you the maturity to handle the responsibility that comes with the promise. The process teaches you how to carry pressure without losing peace, how to lead without arrogance, how to appreciate without taking things for granted. The reason some people rise fast and fall faster is because they got the promise without surviving the process. The foundation wasn't strong enough to hold what they prayed for. The process is uncomfortable by design. It stretches you, tests you, and breaks habits that don't fit where you're going. It's supposed to. You're being refined, not punished. You're being molded into the kind of person who can sustain success, not just taste it. Every delay, every rejection, every challenge is part of that molding. The process doesn't care about your timeline or your emotions. It cares about your growth. God uses the process to expose your weaknesses so you can confront them before they sabotage your promise. You learn discipline by being forced to wait. You learn trust by being forced to walk without sight. You learn gratitude by losing what you took for granted. That's the grind behind the glory, the unseen work that builds the inner structure for everything visible later. The process also humbles you. It reminds you that nothing worth having comes easy. It teaches you to depend on God, not just your own ability. When you go through seasons where nothing seems to work, but you still keep pushing, that's when faith becomes muscle. Every test, every obstacle, every disappointment becomes training. The process strips away pride and teaches surrender. You realize you can't force timing, you can't rush destiny, you can't manipulate outcomes. All you can do is stay faithful, stay consistent, and stay obedient. The promise will come when the process is complete. The process also exposes your motives. Sometimes what you think you want isn't really what you're meant for. Maybe you want success for validation, not purpose. Maybe you want the spotlight, but your heart isn't ready for the responsibility that comes with influence. The process has a way of checking your heart. It'll delay what you want until you want it for the right reasons. It'll take you through humbling experiences that remind you why you started. It'll teach you that the promise isn't about ego, it's about purpose. It's about using what you receive to serve something bigger than yourself. In the process, you'll often feel hidden. That's because preparation happens in private. Before God puts you in public, he perfects you in secret. That hidden season can feel lonely, like you're forgotten, but that's where the deepest work happens. You learn how to build without applause, how to grow without validation, how to stay committed without recognition. Those lessons create authenticity, the kind that can't be fake. When the promise finally arrives, you won't need the crowd to confirm it. You'll already know who you are because the process taught you. Every great story has a process. Before the victory, there's always the valley. Before the rise, there's always the refinement. Look at anyone who truly succeeded with purpose. They had seasons of struggle, silence, and shaping. The process gave them the wisdom that the promise alone couldn't. It taught them gratitude for every inch of progress, because once you've been through struggle, you stop taking blessings lightly. You appreciate every open door because you remember when every door was closed. That's what the process does. It teaches appreciation. It grounds you so that when elevation comes, you stay humble. The process can be frustrating because it rarely makes sense while you're in it. You can't see the bigger picture yet. All you feel is the grind, the waiting, the testing. But the process is like a puzzle. Every piece matters, even the ones that seem out of place. What feels random now will connect later. The connections you make, the lessons you learn, the pain you endure, all of it adds up. Nothing is wasted. God uses every experience to shape your capacity for what's coming. The more intense the process, the greater the promise. During the process, faith becomes your anchor. You have to trust that you're being led somewhere meaningful, even if the road feels uncertain. You have to keep showing up when you don't see results. Keep believing when evidence says otherwise. Keep sowing seeds even when the soil looks dry. The process demands endurance. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. There will be moments when you question everything, your direction, your calling, your worth. But that's part of it. Doubt doesn't disqualify you, it disciplines you. Every time you choose to move forward anyway, you're strengthening your spiritual endurance. The process also builds your capacity for gratitude and stewardship. When you've waited for something, fought for it, cried for it, and grown for it, you value it differently once it arrives. You protect it, you honor it, you use it wisely. That's why God doesn't rush blessings. He gives them when he knows you'll treat them right. The process matures you emotionally, mentally, and spiritually so that when the promise finally manifests, you don't misuse it or lose it. There's also a hidden beauty in the process. Create stories that inspire others. Your struggle becomes someone else's survival guide. The lessons you learned in private become wisdom you share in public. The process gives your purpose depth. Without it, your story wouldn't carry the same weight. People connect with authenticity, and authenticity is born through experience. Every time you endure something hard and still choose faith, you're building testimony, evidence that endurance pays off. The process requires patience, but it also rewards perseverance. It doesn't always feel fair, but it always produces fruit. You might not see it immediately, but one day the pieces will align and you'll realize why it took the time it did. You'll look back and see how the struggle saved you, how the pain prepared you, and how the delay developed you. You'll see how every test built the wisdom you now walk in. The process may not always be beautiful, but it's always necessary. When you understand process before promise, you stop begging for shortcuts. You start valuing the journey instead of obsessing over the destination. You stop complaining about what's taking long and start appreciating what's being built within you. You start seeing the blessing in the breaking, the power in the patience, and the beauty in the becoming. The process turns you into the kind of person who doesn't just receive promises. You protect them, nurture them, and grow with them. Because the truth is, the process isn't something you just go through, it's something you grow through. Every season, every setback, every delay is shaping you for what's next. The promise isn't just about getting what you want. It's about becoming who you're meant to be. And once you understand that, you stop fighting the process and start flowing with it, knowing that everything you endure is working together to prepare you for everything you've prayed for. Control the controllable, leave the rest. That's one of those principles that sounds simple but takes years to master. It's a mindset, a lifestyle, a way of moving through chaos without losing your peace. It means understanding that not everything is your responsibility, not every situation needs your reaction, and not every outcome is in your hands. It's learning to put effort where effort belongs and surrender where surrender is required. In a world that constantly tells you to grind harder, to fix everything, to be in charge of every detail, this idea feels unnatural. But peace doesn't come from having control over everything. It comes from trusting that what you can't control is still under divine order. When you try to control what isn't yours to handle, frustration and anxiety take over. You start carrying burdens that were never meant for your shoulders. You replay conversations, overanalyze decisions, and obsess over results you can't change. That's how people burn out, not because they're weak, but because they're fighting battles that aren't theirs to fight. Control the controllable means focusing on your response, your effort, your attitude, your discipline, your faith. Everything else belongs to God. You do your part, and then you trust him with the outcome. That's balance, action, and surrender working together. Life will constantly test this principle. You'll face situations that make you want to force things to happen, relationships you want to fix, opportunities you want to rush, answers you want immediately. But every time you try to take control of what's not yours, you end up delaying what's meant for you. Because when you try to manipulate timing, you interfere with divine flow. God's order doesn't need your panic, it needs your patience. Your job is to show up, stay consistent, and keep your heart right. His job is to make everything align when it's supposed to. Control the controllable means choosing peace over panic. It's refusing to let circumstances dictate your emotions. You can't control how people treat you, but you can control how you respond. You can't control what life throws at you, but you can control how you handle it. That's real power, mastering your inner world when the outer world is unstable. The truth is, most of life's chaos isn't external, it's internal. The storms outside aren't what drown people, it's the ones they let inside. When you learn how to guard your mind and your spirit, you stop being a victim of circumstance. You realize that peace isn't about having a perfect life. It's about having a stable heart and an imperfect one. This principle also teaches you discipline, because once you stop wasting energy on what you can't control, you suddenly have more energy to focus on what you can, your growth, your health, your goals, your habits. You start realizing that success isn't about controlling outcomes, it's about controlling consistency. You can't control when the opportunity comes, but you can make sure you're ready when it does. You can't control how fast results appear, but you can control the effort you give every day. That's where true freedom lies, in knowing you've done your part and leaving the rest to God. The art of letting go isn't about giving up. It's about growing up. It's about maturity, recognizing that control is often an illusion. The tighter you hold on, the more life resists you. When you loosen your grip, things begin to flow naturally. There's a rhythm to life that doesn't need to be forced. When you control what you can and surrender what you can't, you move in sync with that rhythm. You stop resisting life and you start cooperating with it. That's how blessings find you, not through force, but through flow. It takes faith to live like that, because letting go means trusting in what you can't see. It's easy to have faith when you're in control, but real faith begins when control ends. That's when you say, I don't understand it, but I trust it's working for my good. You stop asking why and start asking how, not why is this happening to me, but how is this shaping me? You begin to see that life isn't happening against you, it's happening for you. Even the painful seasons, even the waiting, even the losses, they all serve a purpose you might not see yet. When you live by this principle, you stop living in constant tension. You stop trying to fix every problem, prove every point, and predict every outcome. You learn how to breathe. You realize that everything doesn't need a reaction. Every situation doesn't deserve your energy, and every storm doesn't require your intervention. Sometimes the best thing you can do is stay still and trust. The same God who created the universe doesn't need your help to manage your life. He just needs your obedience and your trust. Control the controllable also means accepting responsibility for your part. It's not an excuse to be passive or careless. It's about owning your effort fully and releasing everything beyond that. You can't pray for success and then avoid the work. You can't ask for peace while fueling drama. You can't ask for guidance and then ignore the signs. Controlling the controllable means showing up with integrity, giving your best, doing what's right, staying consistent, and then letting the results unfold. Once you've done what you can, worrying about the rest is wasted energy. It's also about boundaries. When you try to control everything, you start carrying other people's problems as if they're your own. You take on their emotions, their drama, their expectations. But control the controllable means understanding that everyone has their own process, their own timing, their own lessons to learn. You can guide people, pray for them, love them, but you can't live for them. You can't force change in someone who isn't ready. Learning that will save your peace, you can support without saving, love without losing yourself, and help without controlling. This principle brings you back to the present moment. Most anxiety lives in the future, the what-ifs, the unknowns, the uncontrollable. But peace lives in now. When you focus on what you can do today, right here, right now, you stop letting tomorrow's uncertainty rob you of today's calm. You start realizing that control isn't about managing everything outside of you. It's about managing the moment you're in. You can't control next week, but you can control how you show up today. And when you stack enough todays, lived with faith, consistency, and peace, the future takes care of itself. You also start to recognize divine timing in this mindset, because when you stop forcing, you make space for things to align naturally. What's meant for you doesn't have to be chased. It'll flow into your life when you're aligned with it. That's why controlling the controllable and leaving the rest to God isn't laziness, it's alignment. It's saying, I'll do my part faithfully and let Him handle the unseen. That's how miracles happen, not through force, but through faith that moves in sync with divine order. This way of living brings clarity. It separates stress from strategy. You begin to see what actually deserves your energy and what's just noise. You stop reacting to every emotion and start responding with purpose. You start thinking longer term, less about control, more about contribution. You begin to measure your life not by how much you manage, but by how much peace you maintain. Over time, this mindset becomes your protection. It shields your mental space, your spirit, your energy. You start to recognize when you're overextending yourself, when you're trying to play God instead of trusting Him. You pull back, breathe, and remind yourself, do what you can and surrender the rest. Because the truth is, the things you can control are enough to change your life if you stay consistent with them. The things you can't control are opportunities to strengthen your faith. Together, they create balance, human effort guided by divine timing. That's the rhythm of peace. Move with purpose, surrender with trust. You handle your part, and you let God handle the rest. You work hard, but you don't worry hard. You plan, but you don't panic. You prepare, but you don't push. You let life flow, knowing that what's meant for you can't be missed and what's not meant for you can't be forced. And that's where true control lives, not in holding everything tightly, but in knowing when to hold on and when to let go. Life is a journey that rarely moves in straight lines. It's full of turns, delays, surprises, and divine interruptions that often make us question what's really going on. But when you look deeper, you start to see that every pause had a purpose, every setback carried a lesson, and every unanswered prayer was actually protection in disguise. Trusting God's timing isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's understanding that His plan doesn't need your panic, it needs your patience. It's realizing that what feels like waiting is really working, and what feels like loss is often preparation. When you let go of control and allow God to move, you make room for peace, alignment, and blessings that last. The process might stretch you, but it will never waste you. Every season, the pain, the progress, the silence, the success is shaping you into the version of yourself that can carry your purpose. So walk in faith, not fear. Handle what's in your power and trust Him with what's beyond it. Because what's meant for you will never miss you, and what's not meant for you will never fit you, no matter how hard you force it. Keep believing when it's slow. Keep believing when it's silent. Keep trusting even when you can't see how to work out. Because one day, It will all make sense, and you'll look back and realize that God's timing wasn't late, it was perfect. Good luck, and thank you messages. I want to say thank you for taking the time to listen, to reflect, and to receive these words with an open heart. May your faith stay strong even when the road feels uncertain. May your patience be your power and your trust be your peace. Keep walking your path with confidence. Your time is coming, and when it does, it'll be worth every second of the wait. Stay focused, stay faithful, and may God bless your journey ahead. Thank you, and much love and respect to you all.